With that out of the way, we can move on to our next data set. And this one is called, or our next script, excuse me. This one is called stock underscore sector underscore scrape. The website we are going to be using is Fidelity, and we are going to take the sector and the industry from this web page for every stock symbol in our data set. This is where things may get a little bit complex because now we are using another website to look at stock symbols as well. So Yahoo Finance might have all of our stock symbols, but when we come to the Fidelity website, we may find that a few are missing or Fidelity just don't have them at all. And so we have to solve this in our script as well. The reason for me pulling each sector and industry is mainly because I want to look at a group of stock symbols that belong to a sector or industry and how they perform as a group. Although every stock symbol is not listed, I still think you could get a good idea of how each sector and industry performs with the stock symbols that we have in our data set. Alright, so we could get back to our script. So for our script, we are still using the same packages and libraries as the previous data set, the Google News web scrape one. And it's basically the same concept, so this one will be a little bit faster. With the first box, we are going to import our packages and libraries again, and then we could quickly move on to the second box, will take us to where we are reading in our file. And this contains the stock symbols and the company name behind it. Moving on to our loop or our loop coding section, we first create a empty data frame on the outside of the loop. This is where all of our data will be held. So we can move on to the loop now. So for symbols in stock underscore symbol, we are going to do a try, accept, and pass. This is because not every stock symbol is listed on the Fidelity website that I have in my data set. So it's fine with me if the loop just skips over it and move on to the next one that is in the Fidelity website. For the try accept, the try is going to try and run the loop, and then if there's any errors, the accept portion in our case will pass on to the next stock symbol. So the program will continue to run instead of being interrupted. So now we have our URL link, and this is going to search for all of our stock symbols in that file we loaded earlier and hopefully retrieve the sector and industry if it's available. A very similar concept to the final news scrape file where we are able to modify the link and have our symbols automatically put in there. On the Fidelity website or with the Fidelity link, they have a portion where it says symbols equal and then whatever stock symbol you want to put in there. In our case, we could do this automatically by just putting symbols. Then after the URL variable, the next 3 lines of coding are going to search for the web page, read it, and then close it. Once all of that have been completed, we are then going to use a HTML parser to read that web page or to find the information we need. Then we are going to use Beautiful Soup to find the tag of span with the attribute element of class where the attribute value is equal to right. This information holds our sector and the industry. Once we have that completed, we are then going to set up a variable called sector, and this is going to look at our table with the index of 2, and it's going to retrieve the text. This is going to retrieve the text for the sector. So if it was WBA, the sector for WBA is consumer staples. The next variable that we created is called industries. And this is going to look at that same table, but with the index of 3. And it is going to return the text of the industry. And for WBA, it is food and staples retailing. We then will create a empty data frame using the index as our symbols and this will be called A. Within that data frame, we are going to create several columns. Their names are stock underscore symbol, which is equal to the symbol the current loop is on, the sector, which is equal to the sector variable, and the industry, which is equal to the industry variable from earlier. I also have the sector variable listed again. You do not need to worry about this, so we can move on to the next line of coding, where we have our data frame that's inside of our loop, which is going to append to our data frame on the outside, to our empty data frame. And that information is going to be continuously updated to our B data frame. So that'll hold all our stock sector and stock industry information. And like I said, again, moving on to the next line, we have an except. When I was running this program before, I was getting errors midway through the program. So I came to realize that not every stock symbol is listed on the Fidelity website, or it may be written a little bit different, so it's not gonna find that web link. And if that's the case, then as I said earlier, it could just skip it. I have a SQL query later on that I will show you guys, and it shows you which stocks were not found in the Fidelity website, and it's also included in the front page of the Power BI report. And this is what the data set looks like. Again, it's not final. We need to remove the index column, but it's pretty close to the final version. And if you scroll down to the bottom, the earlier example I was talking about, WBA, you can see consumer staples and food and staples retailing. So everything looks correct on this page. And we also will export this data set or data frame to the specified path as a text file. The reason for this is just because just to switch up the formats of the file, so when it comes to creating our database or creating an ETL pipeline, everything will be different, having some diversity in our files or probably make it a little bit challenging. So now I will show you what the final data set looks like for this stock sector industry scrape. So once I open up the macro VBA file, which is the file that cleans most of my data sets, the file gets changed to Excel 97 to 2003, and the index column is removed from this file. That's basically about it. And there's a reason for this, because when we perform the ETL process using SSIS, not every file that I use worked with SSIS, so I had to change the files.